and thank you for joining us for our first weekly webinar, Navigating Federal Funding in a Time of COVID-19. I'm Kaina Pereira, and I'm the Deputy Director for the Business Assistance Team at GO-Biz, which includes the Business Investment Services Unit, the International Affairs and Trade Unit, and the Office of Permit Assistance. We at GO-Biz would like to thank you for being here today, and we are especially pleased and grateful to host this webinar in collaboration with the Office of Planning Research, our federal partners, and the Grants Republic team. We realize these are unprecedented times, and we want you to know that we are here to help provide support and information to our regional and local partners. After this webinar, we encourage you to immediately tune in to the Governor's daily updates, which he is providing each day at 12 o'clock live on Facebook and at Twitter at CA Governor. In addition, we also encourage staying up to date on all the latest information given COVID-19 by using the covid19.ca.gov webpage. Here you can find useful links to various initiatives, resources, and real-time updates given the current situation statewide. You can also find links to volunteer, contribute resources, supplies, or offer philanthropic support. This page also shares the latest statistics and data provided by the California Department of Public Health. Staying connected is the best thing we can do in this time, and once again, we thank you for your time and for your partnership. We look forward to the months ahead in meeting this moment. With that, I'm turning it over to Trey Bradley, who will go over the agenda and some housekeeping notes for the webinar.
Thank you, Kaina. Hello, everyone. My name is Trey Bradley, and I am a Senior Business Development Specialist here at GO-Biz. Today, we will have a total of 4 presenting entities. First, we will begin with providing a short overview and update from GO-Biz. Following the update from GO-Biz, we'll have Amy Miller, who is the Federal Grants Administrator for the Governor's Office of Planning and Research, or OPR. We are then joined by Eric Yost, Management Analyst for Community Initiatives at the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And then we will have both a presentation from both Heather Fukunaga and Stan Saunders at Grants Republic. We are incredibly grateful to all of our presenters today for providing their time and sharing their information and resources in navigating funding given COVID-19. To provide background, our office, in partnership with the Office of Planning and Research, has been working with a range of federal partners to share information and updates given new resources and funding during COVID-19. This group, the California Federal Partners for COVID-19, consists of several federal agency staff, such as USDA, EDA, EPA, HUD, and SBA. Our offices were fortunate to be able to coordinate with our federal partners, given OPR's role as the Federal Grants Administrator and GO-Biz's work in local economic development liaison services through the Opportunity Zone initiative. Our collaboration has planned for a total of 4 webinars, with this being the first. The primary goal of this webinar series is to provide our collective networks of California communities, local governments, businesses, and economic development partners with up-to-date information on funding and resource opportunities. Separately from these webinars, GO-Biz staff will be co-creating program impact videos with state and federal agency program staff. These videos are shorter micro-learning videos to be posted on our YouTube for viewing at any time, and we are actively reaching out to those programmatic staff to make these videos. And we are also receiving impact and feedback from you all. All of the above is flexible and adaptable. We realize that things are changing every single day. Thus, we aim to be able to change or use any of these planned recordings at any time or change them for any need. For today, we will be recording this webinar. All recordings of both the webinars and the program impact videos will be posted on the website and on our YouTube channel. We will share these links widely for viewing and aim to work with our partners to disseminate the recording and information. We intend to also provide a transcript or captioning with respect to videos that we post. We understand that having your own time to view these videos is critical, hence why we are posting them online for you to review at any time. For today's webinar and future webinars, we ask that if you have any questions, to please use the link provided to a ticket system. This system will allow you to be paired directly with a staff member so that we can work to connect with the proper contact or presenter to answer your question. All videos and webinar recordings on YouTube will contain a link to the Zendesk site. In the box below the video, we also will aggregate questions and responses into a single PDF to be posted with the coinciding video. As you can see here within the Zendesk ticket system on the link provided, there is a portion that says subject. We are asking that you put webinar or video within there specifically so that we are able to delineate which one we are working with in presenting to you all. Following each live webinar, you will be directed to a survey. This survey is intended to get your feedback on both the content of the day as well as the activities of our offices broadly. We please ask that you fill it out. If you are unable after this time, we encourage you to do so later. And in every recording, we will include the survey in the bottom alongside the question intake system on YouTube. And you can see that here on the left-hand side. We want to hear from you. At business.ca.gov/coronavirus-2019, you can find our resource page for COVID-19 for GO-Biz. Here you can find up-to-date information from our office and many of our partners, both to support businesses and local governments. This is also the page we intend to utilize to post links to our recordings for both our webinars and our videos. PDFs of questions and answers from the webinars and the videos will also be posted here. This site is a living page, and so we want to keep it up to date as possible for you all. We also suggest subscribing to the GO-Biz newsletter, located in the second paragraph as seen. This newsletter is distributed every week with new updates and resources given COVID-19, and will also include updates as recordings and documents are posted. Last Friday, we posted our first EDC webinar for GO-Biz during the COVID-19 in a recorded format for you to view at your own time. You can find this on our YouTube channel as well as on our publications page on GO-Biz. You can do this by selecting publications and under the About section on business.ca.gov. Look under the California Business Investment Services section. Our website also contains a PDF of the webinar with clickable links. We encourage you to also explore this recording for information and updates on COVID-19. And this also includes an update and an opening from our Office of the Small Business Advocate on small business resources and funding. Lastly, from the GO-Biz side, we encourage staying connected with both these webinars and our videos that we post throughout this time. You can save the date for our upcoming events, including next Wednesday's Federal Grants in 2020 webinar hosted by the Office of Planning and Research, and our future weekly webinars. Both our offices have Twitters, YouTube channels, and subscription lists. There's plenty of ways to stay connected, and we encourage you to do so. We also are posting all information online in publicly accessible places to ensure that information is readily and easily available. If you or your agency or department are having any issues at all accessing any of the information or using any of the links, we ask that you please reach out to us. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our first presenter. We thank you so much for your time and thank you for staying in connection with GO-Biz. I'm pleased to introduce the next presenter, who is Amy Miller, the Federal Grants Administrator and Lead at the Governor's Office of Planning and Research, who will be providing an update on federal grant resources and the State Clearinghouse.
Great, thank you, Trey. Hello, and welcome from the Governor's Office of Planning and Research for the State of California, or OPR. My name is Amy Miller, and I'm the Federal Grants Administrator at the State Clearinghouse at OPR. and I'm here to talk about the federal grant resources that our office has to offer. The State Clearinghouse is located within the Office of Planning and Research and has a number of statutory responsibilities, one of which is being the single point of contact for the intergovernmental review of federal assistance programs. This role comes from the Federal Executive Order 12372, originally signed by President Reagan in 1982, which allows for state and local review of grant applications for federal assistance. It is up to states to develop their own processes for this review. Another statutory responsibility comes from the State Assembly Bill 1348, which established the role of the federal grant administrator to work with people from within and outside government who are interested in applying for and managing grants. This bill also requires an annual report summarizing federal grant funding awarded to the state, including the number of federal grant applications submitted. Because of these statutory responsibilities, the State Clearinghouse at OPR has a great deal of information and tools for federal assistance on our website, which you can access through the OPR homepage under Clearinghouses, select Federal Assistance. The Federal Assistance section of our website has three main parts I'd like to go over: applying for federal grants, federal grant resources, and the federal grants e-list. The Applying for Federal Grants link is where you'll need to go when you are applying for a federal grant, or if you are an elected official who would like to participate in the intergovernmental review of federal grant applications. Here, you'll find the federal assistance application, which you'll need to complete if you are applying for a federal grant. You'll need to fill in the basic information about your organization and the grant you are applying for, and then you'll attach a PDF of the standard Form 424 cover sheet, which is part of every grant application. At the bottom of the application, you'll hit the Submit button, and then you'll receive an automated email acknowledging that your application was received. This will serve as proof that you complied with the Executive Order 12372 for intergovernmental review, and you can enter the date you submitted on your grant application. After you hit Submit, then the notice of your application will appear on the Submissions tab. In addition, OPR will send an automated email to the registered state, county, and local elected officials in the area where the work will be performed. This will allow the elected officials to review and provide comments to OPR, and we will combine all comments received and sent to the applicant. The applicant will then submit those combined comments to the federal agency. And that concludes the compliance with the Executive Order 12372 for intergovernmental review of federal assistance. The Registration tab is where elected officials or any member of the general public can register to receive notices of grant applications submitted in their jurisdiction or area of concern. Once registered, you can edit your preferences through the Login tab. And that covers the Applying for Federal Grants section of our website and compliance with the Executive Order 12372. Now we'll move on to the Federal Grant Resources link. Here on the Federal Grant Resources page, we have tons of information to share for people at all levels of experience with applying for and managing federal grants. I'd like to highlight just a few of these resources. Under the Learning Federal Grants tab, there are links to helpful documents, websites, and videos that offer great introductions to getting started with federal grants. Here you'll also find links to the fiscal year summary reports from OPR documenting the federal grants received by the state of California. Under the Events and Trainings link, you'll find links to many upcoming workshops and webinars for federal grants, including some upcoming free webinars hosted by OPR that we encourage you to sign up for. Under the Applying for Federal Grants tab, there are links to some great resources with best practices for grant writing to help you make the best proposal for your application. Last, under the tab for federal agencies with grant opportunities, you'll find a complete list of links to the grants pages of each federal agency or sub-agency to help you find out more about the types of grants each agency has to offer. And now the last thing I'd like to share with you all is the federal grants e-list that OPR publishes. Selecting the e-list link will take you to the sign-up form to subscribe for the Federal Grant Updates email newsletter. This free email newsletter is sent weekly to your inbox and highlights new federal grant opportunities of interest to the California governmental, tribal, higher education, and nonprofit communities. The newsletter also includes federal assistance news and information, as well as links to a wide variety of webinars and events. If you have any questions about what you've heard today, or if you'd like to ask for assistance, please feel free to reach out. We're here to help all people and organizations in California successfully apply for, win, and manage federal grants. And with that, I'd next like to introduce Eric Yost at HUD to continue with the next part of our presentation.
Thank you so much, Amy. Many thanks to the California Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development and the Governor's Office of Planning and Research. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development has been honored to partner with the California Governor's Office on many initiatives important to California. Our partnership allowed us to quickly adopt and respond to the COVID-19 crisis. HUD's mission is to create strong, sustainable, inclusive communities and quality, affordable housing for all. Our strategic framework directs us to advance economic opportunity, including bolstering growth in opportunity zones. It is through the Opportunity Zones initiative that our relationship with GO-Biz was created. Many think of HUD as only housing, but HUD also has an "and" to focus on urban development. The Department of Housing and Urban Development Act of 1965 compels HUD staff to promote the growth of cities and states and the efficient and effective use of housing and community and economic development resources by stimulating private sector initiatives, public-private sector partnerships, and public entrepreneurship. It also compels our HUD federal staff to work with other federal agencies and share information about other federal agency resources. My name is Eric Yost, and I work in the HUD Office of Field Policy and Management in the Los Angeles Field Office. My role at HUD focuses on building and strengthening public-private partnerships for our place-based initiatives such as Promise Zones, Envision Centers, Connect Home, Choice Neighborhoods, and Opportunity Zones. This includes working with state and local government, along with private sector partners like investors, philanthropy, and businesses both large and small to assist our most vulnerable Californians. In these initiatives, I've worked with 22 federal agencies and the White House to align and target federal resources, both grants and programs, and strive to build capacity in state and local government and community-based organizations. Thus today, I'm honored to not only represent HUD, but also our federal partners that collectively have resources for California to address the COVID-19 crisis. Following this presentation, I want to ensure that you have these 5 key takeaways, especially for ensuring your communities have knowledge and access to federal grants. The key 5 takeaways during the COVID-19 crisis include 1, how to search for federal grants, 2, how to find COVID-19 CARES Act discretionary grant funding versus formula funding, and any other future legislative funding for the COVID-19 crisis. 3, sharing how federal grants have changed during the COVID-19 crisis. 4, helping you to create a federal grants action plan. And 5, understanding the federal grant cycle to ensure your organization successfully secure competitive federal funding. There are 26 federal agencies that grant federal funding. This includes over 1,000 federal grants annually. Funding opportunities are subject to annual federal appropriations, or, as we have witnessed, if legislation is passed such as during the COVID-19 crisis through the Families First Act or the CARES Act. The main source for searching and applying for federal grants is grants.gov. However, it should be noted that a small percentage of federal grants are not in grants.gov. Creating a grant action plan is critical to success in searching and aligning federal grants for your needs. During the COVID-19 crisis, because of the need to find federal funding fast for your communities and residents' growing needs, a simple plan can reap benefits. Simply put, the process for getting started to create your plan should be focused on 6 key steps. 1, learning about federal grant opportunities. 2, check to make sure your organization is eligible to apply. 3, search for funding opportunities. 4, register to apply for funding. 5, apply for federal funding. And 6, track your grant application that will hopefully lead to a successful federal grant award. Here is a simple checklist for getting started to make sure that you have the best opportunity for success. Understanding one of the key terms used in federal grant applications is important in the process of applying for a federal grant. The Notice of Funding Available, or NOFA, is a commonly used term for the application document that includes all the information about the federal funding opportunity. Other terms commonly used in the federal government include Funding Opportunity Announcement, or FOA. Searching for open federal grants can be daunting. However, there are some simple steps to find federal grants and receive notices or updates. Once you become more familiar with grants.gov's search criteria feature, you will more easily be able to find open federal grants. Finding open grant applications, as I said, could be overwhelming. For example, as of yesterday, April 21st, there were 2,800 federal grants posted and currently open on grants.gov. The key is to narrow your search to those you are eligible to apply for and are opportunities that meet the needs of your communities and residents. The basic search criteria is the most commonly used tool on grants.gov. Simply using keywords can help to find grants of interest. However, this can many times result in still hundreds of grants to review. Thus, next filtering by eligibility is essential. Don't limit your search to federal agencies, as many federal agencies have grants that you may not realize could benefit your community needs. For recent COVID-19 CARES Act funding, or for other funding related to addressing the coronavirus crisis, a simple keyword search of parentheses COVID-19 parentheses or parentheses coronavirus end of parentheses will offer a list of open grants. You can also create an email tickler with keywords, or if you're more sophisticated, you can create an RSS feed for real-time postings of grant notifications. California has 879 opportunity zones, designated low-income census tracts, eligible for not just tax incentives for investors, but also for federal benefits for federal grants. To date, 225 federal grants from 16 federal agencies have offered opportunity zone benefits to applicants who focus efforts in opportunity zones or work in collaboration with an opportunity zone investment in their community. Currently, there are 68 federal grants open with opportunity zone benefits. The comprehensive list of all federal grants and programs with opportunity zone benefits is posted on opportunityzones.gov. However, grants are posted daily, so it is important to search grants.gov for the most current open federal grants. Many federal agencies are extending their grant deadlines during the COVID-19 crisis. There is no simple way to be notified of grant deadline extensions. Diligently check deadline dates on grants.gov. Many of the CARES Act discretionary grants are having rolling deadlines, thus subject to available funding. Apply now. Some federal grants are being released with appropriations authority for disaster efforts. As with existing federal grants, many agencies as directed by the CARES Act, are offering waivers for use of funds. It is also important to also check to see if respective federal agencies have offered waivers for their open grants similar to their existing grants. It is important to understand the life of a grants.gov application package cycle. The cycle includes activities from the perspective of the grantor or the federal agency providing the funding opportunity versus you, the applicant, and how these work separately and together. The grantor and the grantee have specific responsibilities. Understanding these responsibilities will ensure you better understand the federal grant application cycle. Once the grantor establishes the federal grant, the opportunity will likely be available on grants.gov. These opportunities are posted daily. As I mentioned, with the exception of only a small handful of federal grants, fewer input is forecasted. Thus, when a federal grant is typically posted in grants.gov, it is live, and the grant application period is open with usually very short and tight deadlines. Thus, it is important for you to search and find these federal grants. Once you find the specific federal grant opportunity of interest on grants.gov, you will want to review the application posted. If you haven't already registered with grants.gov, as required in order to submit a federal grant application, this is when you will want to do so immediately. There are some technical steps you will need to do before you're eligible to apply for a federal grant. If you haven't done so before, or your partners have that you are working with, this is the time to do it. This list provides the necessary technical steps needed to be ready to apply for a federal grant. As shared, grants.gov hosts the application package. In some instances, the federal grant application will be posted after the grants.gov listing is posted. At this stage, you, the applicant, will be downloading the full application and all required and related forms. You will then begin completing the grant application. Note that working on federal grant applications can occur while you are still working on the technical registration. I highly recommend completing the technical registration steps now so you don't have any technical issues preventing an application submittal. Once the application is completed, you, the applicant, then applies and submits your application in grants.gov. The federal team working with grants.gov will then screen the application package for any technical errors, such as problems with opening attachments, and they transmit the package to the respective federal agency offering the federal grant opportunity. The respective federal agency offering the grant will then review your federal grant application. Federal staff and leaders will then select applications to award and will notify the respective applicant of the grant award. The goal of this webinar is to ensure you and your organization are successful in being awarded federal grants. If you're not successful in receiving a federal grant, I highly recommend requesting a debrief from the respective federal agency shortly after you hear about not being awarded the grant. These debriefs can be useful for a subsequent federal grant application for the identical grant, or for other federal grants you may apply for, as you will now understand the deficiencies and areas to improve your application. I know many organizations that have done so and not only secured that identical federal grant the next time it is offered, but also in other federal grant applications. These debriefs may be in writing sometimes with your scores for each section with comments, or they may be provided over the phone. To help you jumpstart your efforts to secure federal grants, here are some action steps to take to help create your federal grants action plan. Thank you so much for this opportunity to share information about the federal grant searching and application process. I look forward to additional collaborations with GO-Biz and OPR for other federal grant webinars we have planned, including information about specific HUD and other federal agency grants that are available. Here's my contact information should you have any question about this presentation. It is my pleasure now to introduce Stan Saunders from Grants Republic. I have worked with Stan and his team for many years, helping to identify and apply federal grants to help with neighborhood revitalization. Their success with identifying and writing federal grants is unparalleled.
Thank you, Eric. It's good to have this opportunity to discuss federal grant writing with the team here. Let me put this. Yeah, okay. Okay, thank you for that introduction. My name is Stan Saunders, and I'm here with my colleague, Heather Fukunaga, as part of Grants Republic. We have 26 years combined experience successfully writing federal grants. And today we wanted to share some tips with you, some concrete ideas on how you can make your federal grant proposals stronger. And these have helped us a lot over the years, and so we're happy to share them. The first step we recommend when getting ready for federal grant submission is to check your status in two key federal systems. The System for Award Management, which is called SAM, and grants.gov, which Eric has already talked about. Now, if you've never submitted or received federal funding, you need to establish your accounts immediately in these systems, as this process can take a couple of weeks, and they are required for federal grant submission. For those whose organizations already have accounts in these systems, we want you to do a couple of housekeeping tips to make sure that you're up and ready to apply for federal grants. So what you need to know is, for SAM, is who has your username and password for your agency. Is this active for them, their username and password? And then when you go in, is your agency account in SAM active? Because this requires yearly renewal. We recommend that if your renewal date is within the next 2 months, you should go ahead and renew now, so you don't have to deal with it when you're trying to submit a federal grant. For grants.gov, which is the portal where you upload and submit the applications, you should also ensure that you know who has the usernames and passwords for 2 separate accounts. The e-Biz point of contact is typically your chief financial officer or perhaps someone else in your finance department. And this is the person who assigns roles in grants.gov to others in your agency. So it's very important to know who currently has this username and password and if it is active. The second important person in grants.gov is your authorized organization representative, or AOR. And this is typically the person who is authorized to sign on behalf of your agency, and they will electronically sign upon submission of your proposal to the federal government. So it's very important to know that your AOR role is, you know who it is in your agency, the username and password are active, and this is ready to go. And the reason that we're stressing this is that working with clients over the years, with agencies who have set up these accounts in SAM and grants.gov, we found that it's quite common that people transition from the agency or go on leave. And the agency no longer has easy access to these required usernames and passwords. And it's very difficult when you're trying to put in the correct ones or find new ones for this when you're actually applying for federal grant. So we recommend you do it before you apply. So we're not providing a comprehensive grant writing workshop here, so we wanted to put together our top tips for making your federal proposals high quality and competitive. The first that we highly recommend is to intensely focus on the instructions in the request for proposals, often called the RFP, sometimes called the NOFA, It goes by different names, but these are the instructions for how to put your federal proposal together. What we do and what we found work for us is we typically read through the entire RFP at least twice at the beginning of the project. And what we're doing the first time, of course, is we're looking to see about our agency eligibility, the funding amounts, the deadlines, required partnerships, what's needed for the project, and to see if this is something our agency that is appropriate for our agency to apply for. The second time we read it intensively, highlighting key sections that we know we need to talk about that are important when putting together the proposal. And then after completing a draft of the proposal, we highly recommend reading through the RFP a third time. And when we do this, we always pick up useful information. And the reason for this is by this point, after completing a draft of your proposal, you thoroughly understand what you're doing, and you also have a good understanding of the RFP. So you can go through and pinpoint the specific elements that you should add to your proposal and strengthen it to get more points. Second, we recommend that you think of your proposal as a completion of a series of mundane but very specific steps. These smaller steps and processes clearly demonstrate that you understand how the funding should be spent, you have a well thought out program designed for doing this, and clear outcomes that clearly demonstrate how you will have success upon completion of the project. And the remainder of our tips will talk about some of these very specific steps that we recommend to put together a well-organized proposal that allows reviewers to clearly understand and appreciate how your design meets the funding requirements. If you do this, your proposal is very well organized, which makes the reviewer's life easier. And they will appreciate what you're doing in the proposal, and it will receive more points in scoring. Finally, our third tip is to have one person in your agency assigned to be the proposal lead. And the reason we do this is while others may complete sections of the narrative, the work plan, or the budget, the proposal lead ensures that the proposal has a consistent voice throughout and is a person responsible for ensuring that all required elements are included. The proposal lead is ultimately held accountable for meeting all interim and final deadlines for submission in your agency, while also ensuring that the proposal is technically accurate. It is this person, most of the time, who should do that third review of the RFP that you complete prior to submission. At this point, I am going to turn it over to my colleague, Heather Fukunaga, who will continue our discussion.
Okay, thank you, Stan. So I'll continue by covering some key steps in the proposal process that we think are important for developing a competitive federal application. So some federal proposals require a logic model, but we recommend using one for planning purposes, even if it's not required. By putting each component of your proposal into this logic model format, you'll ensure that there's internal consistency in your narrative, and this is really critical for a competitive grant. For example, you don't want to have a reviewer wondering why your proposed intervention activities don't address what you listed in the needs section. And then you can also use the logic model as a high-level outline when you start to work on your narrative. After the logic model, we recommend that your next step in the process should be developing a budget that's based on the project design in your logic model. It's better to complete the budget early in the process because the narrative that you write, including details such as the number of new staff members that you propose to hire or the number of residents served, all of that will be determined and limited by your budget. So now that you have your basic project design in your logic model and a draft budget, you can start writing. Our first step is always a narrative outline. It should be organized using the headings in the RFP criteria, and that way the reviewers can easily see which section you're responding to. You should then break down the sections into suggested page limits based on the number of points per section. So for example, if your narrative is worth 100 points total and it's going to be 10 pages long, a need section that is worth 10 out of those 100 points should be approximately 1 page. This breakdown will help ensure that the components of your narrative meet the funder's expectations in terms of their relative importance. And then lastly, make sure your narrative outline also conforms to the RFP formatting requirements for things like font size, and spacing. Another key preparatory step to develop competitive federal grant proposals is to have a robust network of partners that you can call on. So as you think about the types of federal funding you may pursue, you can start to identify potential partners that will align with that project or those types of services. You want to make sure you understand your potential partner's strengths that they could bring to the project and have an idea of exactly how you would include them in a proposal. And you will especially want to consider which partners will enhance your competitiveness by filling gaps in capacity. Right now, you may want to consider touching base with your partners so that they can be ready to provide any required documents if they are included in your proposal. And if you don't regularly work with these potential partners, you could have a COVID-19 grant planning meeting to start preparing. And for proposals with numerous partners, we recommend that you develop a partner tracking sheet, and this will help ensure that you're collecting all the required documents before your grant deadline. Here's an example of what we use when we have a lot of partners on a proposal. You can see that this tracks both our outreach and communications with each partner so that they're in the loop on what we're proposing. And then it also includes any needed deliverables, such as an MOU or sometimes support letters, and whether that's been received. This is extremely helpful on larger projects with many partners and moving pieces to make sure you have what's needed before the deadline. And as Stan was talking about, this is one example of the mundane but very specific steps that will keep your grant on track for success. The final thing I want to discuss is how to address COVID-19 in your grant proposals. Given the uncertainty for how long stay-at-home orders, social distancing, or wearing masks will be required or suggested by public health officials, we're providing here some overall guidance on how these may affect your grant proposals. So the first thing, and I'm sure most of you are already on top of this, but it's just to be knowledgeable about the state and municipal requirements and guidelines that will impact how you plan a program or service. There is sufficient guidance in California for you to develop a few different possible scenarios for how your proposed project would operate depending on how things go. So for example, if you're proposing a workshop, you may have one plan that relies on using a video platform like Zoom to meet stay-at-home requirements. You may propose a second plan that would include in-person programming, but maybe that modifies the placement of classroom furniture to maintain social distancing. And then you may have a third kind of back to normal plan for when a vaccine is developed and services can occur more regularly again. And then similarly, we suggest building some flexibility into your budget where possible to accommodate changes to the program design based on changing COVID-19 guidelines. So this especially works well in the supply category for your budgets, where you can include a less detailed line item like program supplies. Then in implementation, you can use that line item for your usual supplies, like maybe printing handouts, but you could also use it to purchase something like face masks for your staff if that's what's really needed to deliver the programs. So overall, we just want to emphasize that it'll be important for you to demonstrate to funders that you've considered all of your options, you're staying on top of the latest guidelines, and that you're ready to adapt your services as needed to ensure the continued implementation of the programs that they're funding. We're happy to answer any questions about what we've covered, and you can reach us at info@grantsrepublic.com. And I also want to mention that we offer a funding newsletter called The Portal, and this has the latest federal and state of California grant opportunities that have been released. And more recently, we've also added a special section that features COVID-19 funding. And you can sign up for that at our website, grantsrepublic.com. So I want to wish all of you good luck on your federal proposals, and I'll turn it back over to GO-Biz to wrap up. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather, and thank you, Stan, and the Grants Republic team. So to conclude, we are really, again, emphasizing staying connected with our offices during this time, and we want to work with you all given this new wave of federal funding, and also aligning it with state programs that exist here that many of you have seen in working both with GO-Biz and with OPR. We provided a short checklist, kind of some of the immediate actions that we think to take, especially given COVID-19. We understand many of you have already done this, but we just want to do them here again for a reminder. So the first one is to sign up for the Governor's Office of Planning and Research e-list for federal grant updates. And you can see that link here that we will also be providing within the PowerPoint presentation. If you did also see within the Zoom email when you got the registration for the event, we also provided it there. And you can also find the links to our newsletters and our ways to stay up to date on both of our internet web pages. The second is to also, to sign up for the GO-Biz updates for our newsletter for updates. And we do provide on that newsletter both the info and links to the recordings for these weekly webinars that we are hosting and to the shorter program impact micro learning session videos that we will be recording and posting within the coming weeks. The third is that we encourage you to follow GO-Biz on Twitter and on YouTube, subscribe to our channel, and also to follow OPR on Twitter and on YouTube. There we also post information in real time, and we want to make sure that we have every single outlet to connect with you to share information given COVID-19. The fourth is to, like shared in this presentation, register to receive notices of federal grant applications submitted in your jurisdiction or area or interest on the OPR's website. And you can do that with the portal that they have when you go to the Federal Grants Resources page on opr.ca.gov. 5 is if you don't have a profile in grants.gov, we encourage you to register as a new user. You can subscribe then on number 6 to grants.gov to receive federal grant notifications for either all new federal grant opportunities or saved searches for federal grant opportunities. This can include saved searches for COVID-19 or coronavirus. You can have those and they will populate instantly within your inbox daily. We encourage everyone to do this, not just those within your agencies that are applying for the grants directly on behalf of your agencies, but for all staff or in your organization or your local government or your business to be privy of those opportunities that may be posted within grants.gov. And in closing, we also want to say you can save the dates for all the upcoming webinars by viewing also online. We want to note that if you have any questions, please use the Zendesk ticket system provided in the link. Following the closing of this webinar, we will also be having a survey emerge, and we want to hear from you. We want you to provide feedback on both the content of this webinar, future videos, content that our offices are giving. We want to hear from you what you want the most from us in this time. So we want to be the most helpful. We want to work together with you all. And then we encourage you to share this recording, stay connected, promote any new idea that you hear within these webinars and presentations, or that you see within our notes on our COVID-19 pages to your communities, your businesses, your partners. And so we understand that information sharing is critical in this time. We want to make sure that we are able to get the word out and all work together in sharing this information widely. So the last is thank you very much for your time today and for joining us for our first weekly webinar, Navigating Federal Funding in a Time of COVID-19. Once again, reach out and save the date for next week. We will see you at the next one. Thank you.